Welcome to TMI, a podcast by Henry Ford Allegiance Health. Well, we're in the studio again. We've got a lot of cool things to talk about. This week is going to be interesting. Jen and I have been doing this weird diet thing. You hear about diets, and it's getting close to that time of year. So what is this weird thing that we've been doing?
So it's the uber popular keto diet. And so that we kind of just, I'd like to know a little bit more. I mean, I've done my own research, but it would just be good to really dig in and hear it from like someone who's not just writing a blog and trying to sell something.
And this keto diet, it's weird. I don't like it at all. But it's like this thing everybody talks about. And every once in a while you hear these fad diets, the South Beach diet, the Whole30, the whatever. And a lot of them, we just don't know. I mean, they're probably not good because it's nice to just have a balanced diet.
Right.
But you hear these things and people just go crazy about them, especially if
they see results.
Yeah, and especially if you are like reading blogs or podcasts or any of that kind of stuff that's out there. And we wanted to just bring this kind of rational point of view to this kind of thing.
Yes.
And because sometimes the decisions that we make about our health are not rational. And we just need to make sure that we're doing the right thing because it is so important to our body.
Yeah.
And so, Jen, what have you been doing this keto thing?
I have. I've been doing it for probably about 6 months. My husband and I have both been doing it. It was quite a challenge to start it. And my mind, I couldn't wrap my mind around how am I supposed to eat that much fat? How am I supposed to limit so many carbs? And so it was a real balancing act. And now, I mean, we both Sam's lost probably about 20 pounds. I've lost about 12. So, I mean, it's worked, but I don't know if it's super healthy for me. And that's,
exactly.
I think, what I really want to know, because I could never wrap my mind around how it works.
Yeah, and I've been doing it too, and it seems so counterintuitive to everything I've known about health and dieting.
Yeah.
And sometimes these diets are like that. So we want to make sure we're doing the right thing for our body. And so we found an expert here. In the studio, we have Sarah Chapel today.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Could you introduce yourself and give us a perspective on what you do and who you are?
Sure. I'm Sarah Chapel. I'm a registered dietitian with Henry Ford Allegiance Health, and I've been here for 13 years. So in my role, I do one-on-one nutrition counseling. I'm a health educator, so I have a caseload of 500 people that I follow up with throughout the year to just see how things are going and offer support and guidance and advice where I can.
Awesome.
That's great.
Cool.
So you probably think we're a little crazy.
Well, there's lots of questions, right?
Yeah.
Super popular questions.
And we even have a lot of them written down here on this paper because... Jen, I want to remind everybody to make sure to consult your physician or doctor before you make any changes to your health plan or your diet, because these things can really affect your body, and we want to make sure that you're healthy and not just listening to stuff on the internet.
Absolutely.
We just have so many questions.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Oh, I don't know. I guess maybe... We'll start with, everybody wants to eat more healthy and make a difference. So as a dietitian and health coach, how do you keep up with all these diet trends and things?
Yeah. So lots changes. Lots comes to the media. There's always, like you were mentioning, the keto diet. You've got the South Beach, the Atkins, the Whole30. A lot of these diets are calorie restrictive in some fashion, right? There's always something you can eat and something you can't eat or you have to avoid. So there's always some restriction, which usually means calorie restriction and you lose weight that way. One thing that I do to kind of keep up with these trends, I ask my fellow coworkers, what have they heard? I hear tons from patients. Have you heard about the keto? Have you heard about low-carb? Or do you think it's safe for my kids? Or lots of questions. I also subscribe to evidence-based magazines and research type articles, and as dietitians we have to have continuing education credits every year, like a lot of people in the medical field, so that helps kind of keep up with some of these trends. I see a lot of them too on social media, not that you can believe everything you see there, but it helps me kind of see what's coming down the pipe
what
too,
people
right?
are talking
what's
about
big. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the keto thing, like I said, was so counterintuitive, but it works. Like, that's what's hard about these diets. Some of them actually work for a while.
They do, right.
Yeah, I lost about 35 pounds so far.
And how much time? 6 months?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is if you look at the research, whatever diet you're following, you tend to see weight loss.
Yeah.
Some are at different speeds, but after 6 months or a year, the weight kind of plateaus, and then you start seeing a weight gain.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, and the way that I was thinking, the way that I've approached it is that this is a reset point and then healthy eating after that. Like, to learn proper nutrition.
Is it learning control?
Yes.
Learning control.
Absolutely. Because the weird thing is I'm also vegetarian, so I tend to overdo it with the carbs and the fried foods and the things that are still bad for you. But
well, and that was kind of my challenge, because I had read like that you don't stay on keto for too long because it can be damaging to your body. And mentally, like, to try to switch back to eating carbs was like nearly impossible. Like, I can't stop looking at labels, and I've done like multiple diets throughout my life, not diets, ways of eating, like the Whole30, and trying to, keep things as clean as possible and everything. And I mean, I've had success with that too, but I don't know where I gained a couple pounds over a year or two, and it was just like nothing was working to take it off. It wasn't eating healthy. It wasn't any of that. So it just, so that's kind of naturally like where I landed. So can you tell us a little bit more about,
is that mindset?
Let's kind of talk about the keto a little bit, kind of what that promises. So with the keto diet, it promises that your body is going to start burning more fat for energy. And our bodies are designed to run primarily on carbohydrates.
Right.
If you restrict carbohydrates, your body can run on fat stores, right, for energy. Our brain can do that to meet about half of its demands for energy. The rest has to come from carbohydrates. That's how our brains are designed.
Okay.
So it has to come, from glucose. And we can, if we don't have carbohydrates in our diet, we can then break down protein and use those amino acids and help making glucose. So what happens is that you start losing weight, not because you're burning maybe a ton more fat, but you need to keep up with those energy demands. If your body starts breaking down lean tissue, lean protein, you lose a lot of water too.
Yep.
So with a lot of these diets, keto, and a lot of these kind of trendy diets, you see lots of weight loss initially.
Yep.
It's not that you're losing 30 pounds of fat in a month. Our bodies don't do that. But we're probably losing a lot of water. So some of these diets can be very dehydrating over time if we're not careful.
Yep.
And I've noticed that. Like, when I was doing it, I lost 10 pounds right away. And then I actually, during Thanksgiving, was off of it for a while.
You found some, didn't you?
I went up 10 pounds in 4 days and then back down 10 pounds in a week.
Yeah.
So it was all water, I'm sure.
Sure.
But, I mean, after you lose that water, I went down quite a bit more. But
Yeah. With the keto diet, I mean, your body's going to, when you're burning more fat for energy, you're going to be making ketones, which your kidneys can excrete extra ketones. But if it gets to a point where it's just building up in your bloodstream, now it changes the pH of your blood. It can cause nausea.
Really unhealthy.
Right. So, and there's some, if you have diabetes, this can cause more problems and coma and when people tell me I started this keto, the other thing I want to know is what exactly does that look like? Because there's so many versions of keto.
Yeah.
Different modifications.
There's the dirty version. That's what I've read, and what I've said is dirty. And so that's tons of butter, tons of mayonnaise, tons of bacon.
Right. And we know that those things aren't good for our hearts too.
Yeah.
So if you're going to follow a keto diet, the recommendation would just be watching how much saturated fat, right?
Okay.
We know that the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, more of the plant-based fats, nuts and avocados and olive oil, and those are the good things to choose.
Yep. And that's what I've been doing. Because vegetarian, I can't do all those animal fats for the most part. So I've been just having avocados and eggs. And
Sure.
Eggs aren't great, but trying to supplement that with...
Eggs aren't as bad as we once thought they
I think
were.
I should invest in an avocado farm.
I know, right?
Yeah. So
Well, that's awesome. And that does, that it makes complete sense, because when I first started it, I thought I was supposed to, I'm probably going to scare you by telling you the amount of fat that my app told me to eat, but it was like 168 grams of
That's
fat.
a lot. That's a
I
lot.
couldn't do it. It was just too much. So now, we're a little bit more modified, like what Dave was saying. We're eating a ton of avocado. We still do a lot of butter. I cook with a lot of butter, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm thinking about what's next, because I don't want to stay on that diet forever.
And the way I thought of this is kind of like, it's so trendy to say a detox. Is that a thing? Is that even a thing to detox?
People do detox. They try to detox, right? But so our bodies naturally have a way. We have livers and we have kidneys that help us to detox, to get rid of any waste, any extra water, metabolites, electrolytes, potentially toxins in our body. Our body naturally detoxes itself, right? There are a lot of products that claim to cleanse, colon cleanses, and whatever. Right. So one of the things like apple cider vinegar, the claim behind that is that that it helps you losing weight and helps to detox. There's really no solid scientific evidence to show that.
We have someone in our department who drinks it every morning in the shower. So.
Oh.
Yeah. It's
okay,
kind of
steam it out.
Odd.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
But studies there's been studies done on this. They're really small studies. There's like 150 people or less in this study. And people that added apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon or two a day over 3 months, they've lost 2 to 4 pounds, which is not really significant, right?
No, that could come from a number of reasons.
Right. And then the idea behind it is that the acidity from the vinegar slows down the movement of food through your stomach, so you're not as hungry.
Okay.
So you eat a little bit less. There's nothing magical about...
Gotcha.
Right? The other thing to be careful about is if you have vinegar on an empty stomach, it could irritate your esophagus, your stomach lining. It could interfere with some medications that you're taking. So whatever kind of new fun, trendy craze that you're wanting to try, I would consult with your physician, looking at the bigger picture. How long can you follow this? Are there any medications that I'm on that could contraindicate?
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something you can continue with? I mean, do you think that you want to, Jenny kind of mentioned maybe not knowing if I want to stay on this. Does it work for your family? Does it work for you? What about the holidays? What about...
Right. Yeah. And over, for the holidays, then we just eat normal. I mean, I didn't shy away from the mashed potatoes and stuffing and all the good stuff. And, it was fine. But now I've just trained myself so much, to be watching those carbs. What would you say, a healthy amount of carbs would be? Taking keto out of it. How many carbs should you have a day? Or
so this is a good question, too. Again, lots of controversy over this, depending on what chronic conditions and things like that you have. But our brain, like I said, it runs primarily on glucose. That's its preferred source. And it needs 130 grams a day of carbohydrate to maintain its optimal health.
But that's not eating a starchy potato necessarily.
Well, it could be. Or, I mean, when you think about carbohydrates, there are foods on... They're very extreme ends, right?
Yeah.
You have, a Pop-Tart on one end, or a Monster. And then on the other end, you have black beans or quinoa or something like that. So it's looking at when you, I encourage people, if they're afraid of eating too many carbs, that when you have them, choose the ones that are going to give you the most nutrition. the fruits, the vegetables,
Yep.
the grains, the whole grain breads, the
Complex
oatmeal.
carbohydrates.
We know that those foods are the ones that help lower risk for heart disease, for strokes, for high blood pressure, help regulate blood sugars.
Yep.
Those are the things that we should look at too. And there is there's research showing that more of those foods help to manage weight as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's good.
That is.
And with this ketogenic diet, it has an interesting history. Do you know kind of where this came from?
Yeah, so it started in the 20s as an
Yeah.
anti-seizure diet.
Yeah, anti-seizure.
Really?
Yeah, it was
I didn't
kind of
read that.
strange.
Wow.
Yeah, so those ketones, again, they affect the way your brain functions.
I have another question. So is ketoacidosis, which you hear that as a really bad thing for your body, is that basically what this is?
Yes, but again,
Okay.
like your kidneys can clear those
Okay.
ketones, but if they get really high, if there's too much ketone formation,
Yep.
then it can build up in the blood, and yes, that's the problem you hear.
Gotcha.
About
Okay.
just
Good to know to clarify
confusion.
that.
Yeah, confusion and being lethargic, and in some
Okay.
cases, coma, death. So
So you had to be careful.
you have to be careful.
Very
Okay.
careful. So, and one of the things that I did when I first started the keto diet is like Jen was saying, everybody has a different way that they approach it, which is concerning. But one of the things I did is I also incorporated this intermittent fasting thing, which also seems a little weird.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. But
Okay.
what is intermittent fasting? And I know a couple people who do it, and they swear by it, and they're like, I can eat anything I want as long as it's once a day. And I'm like,
Right.
you're
That's
kind of
not
weird.
true.
Right. So intermittent fasting, as far as like the research behind it, it's only been around for 6-7
Yeah,
years,
it's
really.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's really in its infancy. We don't know long term what this does, but the idea behind it, and again, there's lots of different modifications, I guess, of it. Some say, okay, you only eat for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you're going to eat between, and you pick your times. Maybe you'll eat from 8 to 4, whatever, or 10 to 6, whatever. And the idea behind that is that the less hours you're eating, the less you're going to eat and less you're going to gain weight, right?
Sure.
Kind of makes sense, but we don't know long term.
Okay.
Right? We also know that there are some times when you don't want to fast. You know, if you're pregnant, if you're a child,
Oh,
we
yeah,
don't want to put our kids on
absolutely.
these diets.
Yep.
Right? If you are old, if you are frail, they're not appropriate.
Sure.
If you have diabetes or on an insulin, this could be very dangerous. But when people start following a diet, whatever it might be, they start paying more attention to what they're eating and how much they're eating and their food choices. And that seems to make more of a difference than the timing of meals. I know that's another popular question.
Yeah.
If I eat nothing after 7,
Yep. Like
You're-
Oprah swears to.
but your metabolism doesn't shut off at 7:01, right?
Right.
So more importantly than the timing of your meals, there is research that suggests that if you eat the most when you're more active, so during the day,
Sure.
you tend to do better with managing weight. That doesn't mean eat 3,000 calories at lunchtime. It just means
Right.
that if you're going to be sitting on the couch in the evening for 3 hours, it doesn't make sense to eat a whole
have a-
pizza or,
yeah.
it's
Right.
eating most of your calories when you're more active during the day. There's promising research on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that I found to be most interesting that I'm probably going to continue using is just being mindful of what you're eating. And Jen showed me this app where you can scan the barcode on your food, and it pulls up all the nutrients of it, and then it gives you these little like circles that you can work towards completing how much you need for that each day. And then you can scale that up to if you want to have less calories or more calories and how much fat and all that stuff. So
We have lots of choices, don't we, when it comes to food?
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
Tons of we used to just
Tons.
eat, right?
I
I
know.
know. So I
We
can
made
see,
it complicated.
and that really is this thing, because I used to just snack on stuff and whatever. And this, if I have to put it in my app, then it's another step that makes me think, do I really need this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
been super helpful. Even probably more so than just even doing a keto thing. It's just knowing
Tracking
what you're
it,
doing.
yeah.
Being mindful, I love that idea that you brought up that, like I said, when people start paying more attention,
Right.
right? And as we're coming to the holidays, You pick up on comments people say.
Right.
They have this idea they're going to just pig out for the next month, and then they're going to spend 5 months working really hard, restricting to get it off. But having an approach that's more mindful, what is it that I want to, what do I want to eat? How much do I want to eat? Enjoying the holidays and enjoying the food, of course, because some of that stuff you only get when you get together. So it's super fun, and you want to have those foods, but you also, a question to ask yourself is your food intake, is it like a morality issue where you're like, I was bad today because I had a donut for breakfast, or I had 2 pieces of cake instead of 1, or
Yeah. And for me, it just, sometimes I don't think about food as like an energy source. I think of it as like something you just do. And when you actually see, when you eat a Hinckley's donut or have a pizza, how that affects what you're supposed to eat for the day. Well,
you want to balance it out too.
Yeah.
You don't want to be so restrictive, and it's not that people don't eat perfect all the time, right? So that's why we have guidelines.
Yeah.
Suggestions.
And before that, I wasn't thinking of anything. I would just have it.
But if you're more mindful, so if you have pizza, okay, you're going to have 2 pieces, 6 pieces, you're going to have a salad with it, or you're going to have a lighter dinner if that's your lunch or whatever, right? Just to kind of balance it out. But a lot of these trendy diets, like I said, they have lists and lists of foods that you cannot have or shouldn't have, and you're a bad person if you eat them. But that would be a red flag, right? But it really comes down to, what does the bigger picture look like? Is this something you can maintain for a long time? Is it something that doesn't work for you? Some people start diets and it causes so much stress and anxiety that it's not even worth it, right? You might as well be 10 pounds heavier and not be so stressed than to be so stressed.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, that's a great,
you got to balance it out.
Yeah, and sometimes, though, it's great to think about how this affects us, but sometimes, we're also parents.
Yes.
And it's not only we're making health decisions for ourselves, we're making it for our children and how they're going to kind of form a relationship with food. So what is your take on, so I'm a vegetarian, my wife is not, and my kids are not, but there's some people in our department who they are vegetarians and their children are vegetarians and have been their entire life. What is your take on that? It's kind of
my take on that. I mean, as far as vegetarian diets, it's safe to do for kids. You just want to balance it out, making sure there's some key nutrients that kids need, making sure they're getting calcium, enough protein, iron. So I would, it's safe to do as long as it's balanced out. Sure. So talking with their doctor, checking their weight, they're on growth charts to see how are we doing, right?
Yep, that makes sense. Oh, and there's nothing bad about vegetables anyway. We probably all need more of them in our diet anyway.
And we have another great podcast that talks about how to get your kids to eat healthy that you can go back and listen to. So that was a fun one as well.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to ask, Jen?
Let's
Any
see.
other trends or topics that you want to cover?
Well, I guess when I did my best with eating, working out, and everything, it was doing like the Whole30. So I could not be as strict as that program. It was just impossible. But I did as much as I could, tried to eat as clean as we could. I mean, so overall, is that kind of something that you would recommend, like for someone who's looking to just be healthier?
Well, what worked for you with that program? What did you like?
I liked I knew I wasn't getting enough vegetables in my diet, and that was kind of a way for me to force myself to do it. And just picking, and my family, I love you, Mom, but she has never cooked in her entire life. We've eaten out fast food my entire life growing up. So I know that I don't want to eat that type of processed food all of the time. And so that's kind of what I was looking to get into, is just a healthier way and just finding the cleanest, best things to eat. And but it was still pretty strict, and I think I might be able to do it a little bit better now, but I don't know.
Usually those kinds of plans, I mean, you're having to change not only what you're preparing, how often you're shopping.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a
you
lot.
Shop all the time.
You're changing quite a bit, right? But the diets that are promoting more fruits, more vegetables, less of the highly processed food. I mean, most all foods is processed to some degree.
Yep.
But really watching out for the food products that have 30 ingredients in them, being careful with that. Those diets, more the cleaner eating, the idea behind that, it makes sense. I mean, it's just healthier overall eating. Again, the red flag kind of goes up when people get so restrictive that they're good or they're bad based on what they've put in their body that day.
Yep.
Yeah, and for me, it's just like, it was a time thing where like it was just easy to go grab some food somewhere and not think about it. And then that just builds up. You can't do that all the time.
Right. So then what tends to happen, people have this all or nothing mentality. Well, if I can't keep up with it, I'm not doing any of it. Right. And they go back to old ways, right? Yep. And then they start seeing changes maybe in weight or how they feel or energy levels. Yeah. Well, that diet didn't work. And then they try something else, right? So diets tend to work as long as you stay on them and focused, right?
Sure.
Like I said, the one thing that you want to look out for is, what is this going to do long term for me? If you're on a diet when you can eat 5 pounds of bacon, but you can't have a half of a baked potato,
right?
What's that going to do to you long term, right?
That's a really good
So we don't want to just look at weight. There's lots of different ways to lose weight, right? But not all of them are going to be safe or effective, and we want to look at, can we sustain this? Does it work for my family? Does it work with my shopping habits? For some people that I talk to that want to lose weight, maybe they're eating out 6 or 7 times a week.
Yeah.
How can we eat out 3 times a week? What are some little changes you can do, right?
Yeah, and with this keto diet, I don't think I've been out to eat since I've started it because it's just not really possible.
You're probably eating a lot differently, right? If you're cooking and you're buying foods and you're preparing them at home.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, my mom would cook all the time, and we just got away with it with our busy lives. We both work, we have 2 kids, we'd just grab Little Caesars pizza on the way home or something, and then now that I'm doing this, I'm spending a lot more time cooking and prepping food and doing stuff, and it's refreshing, it's nice, it's cool.
It slows you down a little bit.
Right.
People often say, I don't have time to cook, but when you take that time for yourself and you involve the family and you get the kids help them wash vegetables or whatever, it's
awesome.
It's more entertaining. Yeah.
So there's all these different health trends out there, and people are always looking to do different things with their diet. And one of the big ones that comes up recently is this gluten-free thing. And I hear about it all the time from a bunch of different people, and I question it a little bit. But I actually know someone who has like the celiac
disease.
Yeah. So what's the difference there, and like, what is this whole gluten-free thing? Is it healthy? Does it help? Can you lose what they call belly fat from this? Or is it just kind of weird?
Well, if gluten is a type of protein that's found in wheat.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are many wheat and barley and oats and rye.
Okay.
But like wheat, that's the whole wheat belly thing. There are different proteins in wheat that any of those could cause a negative reaction. If you have celiac disease, you have to just avoid all gluten, right? Because that's the protein that causes this response. There is not any evidence to suggest that that eating wheat, and they've looked at studies looking at, does eating wheat cause gluten sensitivity, or does it cause celiac disease? No, the evidence isn't there. There is evidence to suggest that eating sprouted grain breads or breads that have a longer fermentation, like sourdough breads, they tend to have less of the irritation, possible irritation with the, with your gut. But if you have an allergy, it makes sense to just avoid that altogether.
Right.
But a lot of this is based on pseudoscience that
Yeah.
that the types of proteins in the breads, that the breads, the flour now it's produced in a way that is really promoting, we want light, fluffy breads, right?
Right.
And so there's some proteins that we put in the bread to cause that to happen. And those are not the proteins that are linked to celiac disease.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Well, I think that's a lot of cool information.
It really is. This has been super helpful, and I think I'm kind of thinking just a little bit more about just making, I wasn't really thinking about how this was affecting my body. And so this talk has been super helpful for me to really keep thinking about that and just making sure that I'm doing something that is going to, like you said, be sustainable and just work. And I want to feel my best too. And, you know, I really appreciate all of your help with this, because it's just eye-opening, don't you think, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you really think about what you can do sustainably to eat healthy and not necessarily strive to lose a lot of weight, just to be more healthy.
Right.
And
there's
continue.
lots you can do, right? So some people like to follow very rigid, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And other people say, oh, no, here's where I'm at. I'm just making baby steps. And that's fine too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
that might be better in the long run. So
Sure.
it's nothing so extreme. Usually the truth is somewhere right in the middle of all this extreme eating.
Sure.
Right?
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today.
You are welcome.
If you want to listen to more of these podcasts, they are online, henryford.com/podcasts, and you can find them all there. There's a nice little playlist. You can find all the ways to subscribe to our podcast. If you have more questions, you can find us on Facebook and submit some questions there. We're always looking for interesting topics to talk about. And thank you for being on the show, Sarah.
Thank you.